Saying goodbye is hard. I'm going to cry again. Why didn't T tell me sooner? If this was C, why didn't they say anything? I'm sorry, little Noi. Even though Pokemon games often have tons of content after the credits, this ending feels much more final, more like what my girlfriend usually experiences. Once she finishes a game, she puts it down for good. She really does say goodbye to the characters she grew attached to, because she doesn't go back. A friend is heartbroken, I know. I'm sorry. A true friend, one for life. She's not going to dive into the post-game and spend another dozen hours playing, so this really is her ending, but that doesn't mean it has to end on a sad note. If you wish hard enough, wait, can I go back and spend time with Noi? Can I stay in the world of Pokemon? Wait, is that me? Is that me with the orb? I'm back. I'm jumping over to Noi. Oh wow, everyone's cheering. I've returned. At the start of this video, I asked whether the game was actually as good as I remembered or if I was just clinging to nostalgia. After watching my girlfriend experience it for the first time, I can say with confidence, this game truly shines at delivering a heartfelt, comforting adventure, all the way to the end when her Bulbasaur apologizes for not being able to show us Anakin. She stayed connected to the characters and the plot, and the story of Tenny and Noi ends here, at least for them. I underestimated the game when we began making this video, and I regret that, because replaying it reminded me of how meaningful it was during my childhood. Yes, it has its flaws, but it's ultimately a joyful, warm experience built on the bond between friends, and it always finds a way to make you smile. Thanks to Tenny and Noi's courage, the falling star was destroyed, and peace returned to the Pokemon world. For my girlfriend, it wasn't just the fun of playing as a Pokemon, it was the emotional depth of the journey that made it unforgettable. Nostalgia plays a part, sure, but this game doesn't rely on it. It stands strong on its own, and you don't need anyone else to go see that for yourself. One common issue with these games is how tedious they can be. For example, when I battle Pokemon in the front area, they might ask to join my team, which is what I wanted. But for that to even be possible, I first have to buy the area where they live, and even then, recruiting some Pokemon can be frustratingly hard. On top of that, every time I want to take a specific Pokemon on a mission, I have to go to its area and manually add it to the team. While it might not seem like a big deal at first, it started to wear on my girlfriend too. The repeated setup process after every mission was annoying. Like, do I really have to talk to Geodude every single time? I understand why people complain, but I think I still like these games so much because of the feeling they gave me as a kid. Back then, it wasn't just about playing a game, it felt like entering a whole world. I clearly remember visiting all the different areas not just to recruit new team members, but to check in on them and see how they were doing. Even when revisiting the game with my girlfriend, that feeling kind of came back. I thought I was just leaving when I walked out of an area, but it turns out I was saying goodbye, something that would have made me cry as a kid if it had been my favorite Pokemon. It reminded me of the feeling I had when I first played Legends, Arceus, and saw Pokemon behaving like real creatures, rather than just animated stats. These friend areas felt like a kind of Pokemon zoo. Later on, after we bought more areas, my girlfriend encountered some Jumpluff needing help from a rescue team, but the team, made up of nutmegs, didn't want to help because they weren't getting paid enough. That's when a fully evolved team with perfect stats showed up and convinced them to go anyway. Everyone freaked out because this team with a Charmander, Kadabra, and Tyrogue had a gold rank and looked super powerful. We were the new rookies, so we'd never heard of them, but it was clear they were a big deal. We'll call them Team Act for now, they'll become more important later. With that bit of drama over, she could get back to rescuing and recruiting. Somewhere around this point in the main story, She started having these surreal dreams that hinted at why she became a Pokémon, though they were still pretty mysterious. Around the same time, she met the main antagonist, a rival rescue team, led by Gengar, called Team Meanies. Yes, Team Meanies, that's their actual name. That was the moment I realized just how deep the nostalgia ran. Sure, I didn't expect world domination or anything, but naming them Team Meanies, it's a kid's game, sure, but they might as well have called them Team Bad Guy. It didn't ruin anything, but we couldn't stop laughing when they first appeared. They even stole all our mail, which is technically a crime. She clashes with Team Meanies a few times, but then gets approached by one of the Jumpluff again. The one they asked Shiftry to rescue still hasn't come back, and now they're worried something went wrong. That leads her team to Silent Chasm, one of the first dungeons where status effects really start showing up. At this point, I felt like I was getting the hang of things, learning how to explore caves and deal with challenges, but the game makes poison much harsher than usual. In this game, poison doesn't wear off until you reach the next floor, and it also cancels out your natural health regeneration. Taking damage every few steps can be brutal, especially early on when your health is low. Losing 5 HP per step feels a lot worse when your max HP is 60 than when it's 160. And there are plenty of Pokémon in Silent Chasm that can inflict it. The problem with these games is how tedious they can be. I fight characters who live in the front area, and sometimes they ask to join my team, but I don't get it. They come back again, wanting to join. This is what I was hoping for, but to actually recruit a Pokémon, you first need to buy the area they live in. Even then, some Pokémon are really hard to get. Also, whenever you want to go on a mission with a Pokémon, you have to find them in their specific area and ask them to join, which sounds simple but becomes annoying. My girlfriend even started to get frustrated setting everything up after every mission. Wait, I have to ask Geodude every single time how to leave. I understand the complaints, but I think I still have fond memories of these games because of the story I mentioned earlier. As a kid, it was fascinating to see Pokémon living naturally in their habitats. It felt more like a world than just a game. I remember visiting the different areas, not just to recruit teammates, but to check in on them, playing the game again with my girlfriend. I still get that feeling to some degree. I used to think I was just saying goodbye, but it turns out I could have been doing that to one of my favorite childhood Pokémon, and that could have made me cry. It reminds me of how I felt the first time I saw Pokémon roaming around in Legends, Arceus. There's something special about seeing them act like living creatures instead of just sprites with stats and moves. The friend areas felt like a sort of Pokémon zoo. Later, after buying more Pokémon real estate, my girlfriend meets some Jumpluff who need help, but the rescue team made up of Nutmeg won't go because the reward is too small. Then this elite squad shows up fully evolved. Perfect stats and convinces them to help. It's a Charmander, Kadabra, and Tyranitar, and everyone freaks out over them since they're a gold rank rescue team. We're just the new guys and had never heard of them before. They showed up like, oh damn, they're maxed out and know what they're doing. They'll be important later, we'll call them Team Act for now. With that drama out of the way, she could get back to rescuing and recruiting. Around this point in the main story, she starts having these trippy dream sequences that start to reveal the mystery of why she became a Pokémon, but for now, they're still pretty vague. It's also around this time that the main villain gets introduced, a rival rescue team led by Gengar called Team Meanies. Yes, Team Meanies. That was when I realized just how strong my nostalgia was. I didn't expect world domination from a rescue team, but come on, they're called Team Meanies. I get it's a kid's game, but they may as well be called Team Bad Guy. It doesn't ruin anything, but we couldn't stop laughing the first time we saw it. They even stole all our mail, which is just straight up illegal. She has a few run-ins with Team Meanies, but eventually, one of the Jumpluff from earlier comes back, still looking for their missing friend. This leads her team to Silent Chasm, one of the first dungeons where status effects become a bigger issue. For me, I was finally getting the hang of things, moving through the caves, but mechanically, status effects like poison are harsher than in past games. Poison doesn't wear off until you reach the next floor, and it cancels out your natural healing, so just taking a few steps can really drain your health. It's especially punishing at lower levels when your max HP is low. Losing 5 HP every few steps is way worse when your total is 60 compared to 160. Silent Chasm has a lot of Pokémon like that. Oh god, thank goodness she managed to put Zapdos to sleep and switch in. But I still remember losing this battle as a kid because of my partner. Clearly, I haven't let it go after nearly 20 years. Anyway, this time the fight was pretty easy thanks to her constantly using sleep powder, which kept Zapdos stunned while the rest of the team kept hitting it with rocks. Great job, everyone, they really pulled through. After winning, we rescue Shiftry, but then the Alpha team shows up again. How did he even manage that? They find out my girlfriend is actually human, and Alakazam tells her to visit his friend, Xatu. This guy just stares at the sun all day and probably watches a lot of confusing movies. So he knows a thing or two about weird timelines, not great for his eyes. Once she gets to the top, he shares some vague wisdom about chakras, morning yoga, and how she might be connected to the world's imbalance and the recent natural disasters. Honestly, he might not be as smart as we thought. But before we can reflect on all that, it turns out Gengar was eavesdropping, and that's never a good sign. Team Meanies? Really? Gengar? What's he even going to do? Whenever the game starts with a black screen that says, "The next day," it usually means something important is about to happen and we're about to hit a big one. Everyone in town is gossiping about a legend involving Ninetales. We go talk to Whiscash at his pond. For the short version, a cruel human once grabbed one of Ninetales' tails and was cursed. A loyal Gardevoir jumped in to protect them and was fatally wounded. To pay for their crime, the trainer was transformed into a Pokémon. So now we're starting to think, what if we're that human? It's actually a really cool twist that makes us question who we were before all this. I know I complained about the game being childish with stuff like Team Meanies, but this part of the story actually takes itself seriously and respects the player's intelligence. We end the day early because we're both upset about the revelation, and of course we have another dream. These dreams have been about a Gardevoir, and now my girlfriend is really starting to think maybe she was the human from the legend, protected by Gardevoir. So, are we the one who was cursed for 1,000 years and turned into a Pokémon? Did we abandon Gardevoir? That's not helping our case at all. All because I had to touch that Ninetales tail. The next day in town, things take a turn for the worse. Gengar is spreading lies about us to everyone. Why is everyone believing him? Suddenly, the townspeople turn against us. No, he's spreading fear and misinformation. We don't even know if any of this is true, everybody. Just calm down. No, don't say anything, Noi. Stay quiet. We need legal representation. They somehow think getting rid of us will stop the natural disasters. What? That's not justice. This is turning into some sort of wild Pokémon witch hunt to try and stop the apocalypse. Honestly, this makes me rethink my childhood dream of a world without trainers. Things have descended into chaos. It's like Lord of the Beautifully out here. We have to get out. We try to hide at our rescue base, but the Justice League shows up ready to claim their bounty. No one is thinking straight. In the end, they let us go just for now, but say they'll start hunting us down in the morning. What? I'm literally being hunted now. And the worst part? We still don't know for sure whether we're actually the villains in all this. That's not how I interpreted the conversation. Noi. But we have no choice. We have to run. We can't even bring Jeep. Oh man. Thank goodness she used sleep powder on Zapdos and moved in, though I still remember losing this battle as a kid because of my partner. And clearly I've never gotten over it after nearly 20 years. Anyway, The battle ended up being pretty easy since she kept spamming sleep powder to keep Zapdos immobilized while her teammates just kept pelting it with rocks. Solid work from the team. After the fight, they rescue Shiftry, and then the Alpha team shows up again. I can't believe that just happened. They discover my girlfriend is actually human, and Alakazam tells her to go see his friend Jata, the guy who stares at the sun all day and probably watches a bunch of Christopher Nolan movies, so he knows a thing or two about time travel. Not great for his eyesight. When she gets there, he gives some vague advice about chakras, doing yoga, and how she might be tied to the world's imbalance and the natural disasters. Maybe he's not as wise as we thought. All that would be fine, except Gengar was eavesdropping, which usually spells trouble. Team Meanies, of course. Gengar's always stirring things up. Then the screen fades to black with the next day, and that always means something big is about to happen. Sure enough, the town starts gossiping about a legend involving Ninetales. We're told to go see Whiskash at the pond to hear it. The short version, a wicked human grabbed one of Ninetales' tails and got cursed. A Gardevoir loyal to that human stepped in to protect them and got fatally wounded. The trainer was punished by being turned into a Pokémon. Now we start to wonder, was that us? Were we that cruel human? Suddenly, the game makes us question who we were before all of this. Despite the silly stuff like Team Meanies, this part of the story is actually surprisingly deep and thoughtful. We end the day early, both pretty shaken by the revelation. Then we have another dream. These have all been about Gardevoir. Now my girlfriend's really starting to think she might have been that human from the legend, and Gardevoir took the hit for her. Are we that cursed person who became a Pokémon? If so, that means we abandoned Gardevoir, not exactly helping our case. Things go from bad to worse. The next day in town, Gengar is spreading lies about us, and the townsfolk actually believe him. Suddenly, everyone turns on us. It's full-on mob mentality. He's scaring them and twisting the story, saying that getting rid of us will stop the natural disasters. What? That's absurd. It turns into this chaotic witch hunt like something out of a tribal ritual. They want to sacrifice us to calm the volcano or something. At this point, I started rethinking my childhood fantasy of a world without trainers. Apparently, that just leads to chaos and Paranoiasome, Lord of the Flies situation, but with beautifully. So we flee town and try to hide at our rescue base, but then the big-name rescue teams show up to arrest us. But then, surprisingly, they let us go for now. They say they like us, but we've got until morning to escape, and then they'll start hunting us down like we're in some survival thriller. I'm being hunted now, and the worst part? We still don't even know if we are the villains in all this. Honestly, that conversation didn't clear anything up. We don't have a choice, though we have to run, and we can't even bring Jumpluff with us. It feels so strange going from battling legendary birds at the end of dungeons to taking on a group of angry monkeys that each go down with just one razor leaf. Long story short, we end up giving them chestnuts in exchange for help renovating our team base. Once it's finished, it actually looks great, and I'd never seen the grass-type base before, so it was fun to discover that. When it was finally complete, wow, look at the rose sit. It was such a rewarding moment. Everyone was so happy, and all our friends were there to see it. There's a lot of downtime once the base is rebuilt, so while she's off doing missions to get more Reviver Seeds, I'll briefly talk about the mystery dungeon genre. The game feels a bit like a roguelike dungeon crawler, and each Pokémon type plays like a different class, which gives the game a unique twist and a lot of replay value. When I was a kid, I had both versions, one for the DS and one for the Game Boy, because my parents didn't realize they were the same game. I spent a ton of time on the DS version clearing post-game dungeons and recruiting legendary Pokémon, but I kept restarting the Game Boy one to try different starters and partners. I even remember using the DS version to rescue myself when I fainted on the Game Boy version, thanks to the DS's dual slot feature. Finding Bullet Seed was a huge moment. It cost like 6,000 in the shop, so getting it felt incredible. This game really does stand apart from the usual formula, and even if you're a hardcore fan of the main series, it's worth trying. It's cool to see familiar characters in a different light, and after replaying it, I'd love to see the series get a brand new entry. Sure, it's a little clunky at times, but the sequels improved a lot, and there's still a ton of potential in the concept. Back to the story. We get another Reviver Seed in Tiny Woods. Seriously? Anyway, days pass in the game, and the earthquakes are getting worse. No one's heard from Alakazam's team, so a bunch of Pokémon gather in town and decide to send in a top-tier rescue team to investigate. Everyone's scared, but then Blastoise shows up with his team. A few more days go by, and they come back, beaten badly clearly. It didn't go well. Gengar even returns and starts causing trouble again, but the rescue team steps up and motivates everyone. I think Gengar is the one who ditched his Gardevoir. We give a speech about how this is what rescue teams are meant for when a top team is in trouble. It's up to us to help. I really love this game. It might be a little cheesy, but watching that little Charmander talk about the power of friendship gets me pumped, and it had the same effect on my girlfriend, which isn't surprising since she's always been a sucker for friendship-driven moments. So the next day, we head out to fight Groudon. In theory, this should be our first fight with a type advantage, since he's not a flying type. But the dungeon Magma Cavernous full of fire types, which could be deadly for her. Still, it looks amazing and a bit intimidating. I was nervous, but it didn't matter in the end because she learned Bullet Seed, probably the strongest move a grass type can have in this game. This move completely wrecks enemies. It hits multiple times and has a range of 10 tiles, so she can just blast it down hallways and wipe out anything in the way. It carried her through the game and made battles easy as long as she had enough PP to use it. This dungeon was always my favourite as a kid because of how the tile set kept changing as you went deeper. It feels so strange going from battling legendary birds at the end of intense dungeons to suddenly dealing with a bunch of angry monkeys who each go down with just one razor leaf. Long story short, we end up giving them chestnuts in exchange for their help renovating our team base. Once it's finished, it looks really cool, and I'd never seen the grass type version before, so it was exciting to experience that together. When it was completed, he got so happy. All of our friends were there, and the base looked amazing. After the renovation, there's a bit of a lull in the game. While she's off doing missions to collect more Reviver Seeds, I'll talk briefly about the mystery dungeon genre. The game plays kind of like a roguelike dungeon crawler, and each Pokémon type acts like a different class you can specialize in. It's a really interesting twist on the formula with a lot of replay value. As a kid, I had both versions of the Gamione for DS and one for Game Boy since my parents didn't realize they were the same. I put a ton of time into the DS version, completing post-game dungeons and recruiting legendary Pokémon. The Game Boy version, I kept restarting just to try out different starter and partner combinations. I even remember rescuing my Game Boy team using the DS version thanks to the DS's dual slot feature. I still can't believe I found Bullet Seed. It was something like 6,000 in the shop. This series really stands out from the usual mainline games, and I think it's worth trying, even if you're a die-hard fan of the traditional formula. It gives you a new way to appreciate familiar characters. After playing this one again, I'd love to see a brand new entry in the series. I know I've complained a bit about the clunky mechanics, but the sequels improved a lot of that with quality of life updates, and there's definitely untapped potential here. Anyway, enough rambling. A Reviver Seed in Tiny Woods? Seriously? I know what we're doing today. A few in-game days pass, and the earthquakes are getting worse. No one has heard from Alakazam's team, So the Pokemon in town gather for a meeting and decide to send an elite rescue team to investigate. Everyone's too scared to Gownteal. Blastoise steps up, but even that team comes back days later, beaten and discouraged. Then Gengar shows up, causing trouble again. But somehow, our team motivates everyone. I think Gengar used to be part of a team with Gardevoir and abandoned them. We gave a speech about how rescue teams exist for exactly this kind of mission. Team Ace is in trouble, and it's our job to save them. I love this game so much. Yeah, it's a little cheesy, but seeing that little Charmander talk about the power of friendship really gets me fired up, and it had the same effect on my girlfriend too, which makes sense. She's always loved that kind of story. So the next day, we head out to fight Groudon. Technically, we should finally have a type advantage, since Groudon isn't a flying type, unlike all the previous bosses. But the dungeon's called Magma Cavern for a reason. It's full of fire types that could seriously hurt her. Still, it looks epic and intimidating, and I was getting nervous. Luckily, that doesn't matter anymore because she learned Bullet Seed, probably the strongest move a grass type can have in this game. It's insanely good. She might have picked it up from a mission in Uproar Forest. Moves that hit multiple times are already really strong in this game, but Bullet Seed can hit up to 5 times and has a range of 10 tiles. She could blast it down a long hallway and take out anything in her way. That one move carried her through the rest of the game as long as she had the PP to use it. This dungeon was always my favorite as a kid because of how frequently the environment changes as you go deeper. The deeper you go, the hotter the rooms get, and by the time you reach the bottom, the magma is clearly blazing. The one causing the earthquakes isn't Charizard or Tyranitar, finds them both knocked out near the final floor. Alakazam is apparently still fighting the source of the chaos, even though it's been over a week since they disappeared. They go to help, but arrive just in time to see him get defeated. The fight is kind of amusing because Groudon starts off far away, giving her the chance to hit it with Bullet Seed for several turns before it even reaches them. Groudon slowly walks toward them while they keep attacking. Eventually, the battle ends in their favor, and with that, the whole team is together again. They believe they've finally restored peace until Xatu sends out a psychic warning to every Pokémon nearby that the world is about to be destroyed by a meteor unless they ask Rayquaza for help at the Sky Pillar. No special task force is assembled. This time everyone agrees that the best hope lies with 2 unevolved starters and a rock with arms. They're given a day to prepare. The music carries over from the cutscene into gameplay, and she stocks up on elixirs and fills the rest of her bag with Reviver Seed Cheese ready for a fight. They have one last dream sequence with Gardevoir. Although Gengar tries to ruin it with Dream Eater, he eventually retreats. Gardevoir finally explains that she was turned into a Pokémon to save the world from the falling star, and once she fulfills her mission, she'll return to being human. This upsets her. She doesn't want to leave her partner or their rescue team. She's grown attached to her friends, and now she's told she'll have to leave it all behind. Still, the choice is clear: save the world. All that's left is to climb the final dungeon and face the legendary sky-high Pokémon in the last battle. She has a long, mixed history with Rayquaza, and ironically, it's another dragon-flying type who takes little damage from grass-type attacks. Once in the sky, the battle starts, and the whole team is giving it their all. The dungeon is longer and more challenging than any before, and each of the enemy's moves is unpredictable, whether it'll be a weak hit or a devastating attack. Thankfully, there's a checkpoint partway through, but there are still 9 more floors to climb. The maze-like structure is frustrating, but she finally reaches the top. They engage in the final battle, hoping Bullet Seed connects. Rayquaza remains epic, and everyone's performing at their best. After the battle, there's a powerful moment of acceptance and determination as they defeat the falling star and save the world. Life can now return to peace. Pokémon gather at the square to celebrate. Even Whiscash, who they only spoke to twice, joins in. But before the credits roll, the game gets deeply emotional. There's a heartfelt goodbye she doesn't want to part from her friend. Tears are shed as she's pulled away, saying her goodbyes, grateful for the journey and friendships. Despite the game's light and silly moments, the ending is touching and heartfelt, showing how much the story and characters meant to her. As the team goes deeper, the rooms get hotter, and by the bottom level, the heat from the magma is intense. Charizard and Tyranitar are found unconscious on the second to last floor, while Alakazam is still fighting the enemy. It's been over a week since they disappeared, and he's apparently been battling the whole time. They move in to help, but arrive just in time to see him defeated. The battle is a bit humorous since Groudon starts far away, giving her the chance to land several turns worth of bullet seeds before he gets close. The whole team shows up afterward, and with that threat taken care of, peace seems to be restored, or so it seems. Then, Xatu sends out a psychic broadcast to all Pokémon nearby, warning that the world is about to be destroyed by an incoming meteor, unless they can get help from Rayquaza at Sky Pillar. This time, no elite team is, former Devora 1, agrees that their best hope lies with 2 unevolved starters and a rock with arms. They're given 1 day to prepare. She stocks up on elixirs and fills the rest of her inventory with reviver seeds, ready for battle. Before the final dungeon, there's one last dream sequence with Gardevoir, but Gengar tries to ruin it with Dream Eater. He ends up retreating. Gardevoir reveals the real reason she was turned into a Pokémon, to stop the meteor. Once her mission is complete, she'll return to being human. But she doesn't want to leave Noi or the rescue team behind. They're meant to be together. Saving the world is important, but she's grown attached to her friends. Still, the decision is made. All that remains is climbing the final dungeon and facing Rayquaza in one last battle. Her history with Rayquaza adds a personal layer to the fight. Ironically, he's another dragon, flying type, who heavily resists grass moves. As they rise through the sky, the dungeon proves to be the longest one yet. Each turn is uncertain, will Noi deal big damage or just a little. Thankfully, there's a checkpoint halfway, but there are still 9 more floors after that. The maze-like layout makes things even tougher. Finally, she reaches the top. The battle begins, and she hopes the bullet seeds connect. Rayquaza never stops being epic, and their partner Pokémon gives it their all. They win together. After everything, they destroy the falling star and save the world. Peace returns, and everyone celebrates in the town square even. Whiscash, who they barely talk to, is cheering. But the game isn't done yet. It turns deeply emotional just before the credits. "My friend Noi, I'll never forget you," she says. She's in tears. "What will I do when you're gone?" She begins to fade, going back home. Her emotional reaction shows just how much the story impacted her. Despite the light-hearted tone and goofy moments, the game created a real connection, making the ending genuinely heartbreaking. The main goal is to explore dungeon floors and find the stairs to go deeper until reaching the end. Exploring more just means finding items and navigating, though the controls can be a bit awkward since you need to use the start button or touchscreen to change direction. As a kid, this was frustrating, especially when trying to rescue Pokémon and accidentally switching places with them repeatedly. Fortunately, his girlfriend figured it out more easily. Turns go by quickly when few Pokémon are around, but things become more tactical when the rescue team encounters wild Pokémon in the dungeons. When groups of enemies appear, gameplay shifts into a strategy mode where movement, attacks, and positioning are key. Items also serve various purposes beyond healing or curing status effects. At this point, it's safe to just use basic attacks on the Caterpie. After saving the crying baby Caterpie, a new friend asks if she wants to form a rescue team. With natural disasters happening across the Pokémon world, rescue teams are formed to help others. Since she has no other obligations in her new life as a Bulbasaur, she agrees, and the two of them start their own team, Tani and Noi. Early missions are simple: unlock new dungeons, and reach the end to progress the story. Between story missions, the team can take side jobs from the bulletin board in town, which usually reward money or useful items. The first major boss fight happens in the third dungeon, Mount Steel, where a surprising realization occurs. Almost every major boss in the game, except one, is part flying type. The Mount Steel boss, Skarmory, isn't too hard due to its steel-type weakness to Charmander's moves. Watching this highlighted the long grind ahead, especially for grass types, which tend to be at a disadvantage. Even though grass types should be useful against the many water types in Generation 3, the ocean and lake dungeons don't appear until post-game. So despite having strong moves like Vine Whip, PP limits, and dungeon pacing can make things tough, some moves don't work well with the game's grid-based system, while others become extremely powerful. After defeating Skarmory, the team can't reach Diglett, but rescued Magnemites show up to help. They offer to join the rescue team, but decline due to having no place to stay, which introduces the concept of recruiting new members. The next day, the game teaches about Friend Area's system, where players buy habitats for Pokémon evolution lines to live in. This acts like a Pokédex, and though he wanted to complete it as a kid, he never managed to. This system has been a topic of debate, and as far as he knows, it doesn't return in later titles, though he's not sure about the Switch games.